The words you just heard, the words we sang as we close the ark are from Proverbs 3. Et chaim hi lemachazikim ba. It is a tree of life to all who grasp it, and whoever holds on to it is happy. It is a tree of life. The previous verse, which we also chanted, goes, "Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace." A number of you were here last week when I spoke about violence. I mentioned the pipe bombs and the Khashoggi assassination and Trump's jubilant comments about Gianforte's assault on Ben Jacobs and the militarization of the border and the 20-year anniversary of Matthew Shepard's brutal slaying. And I spoke about feeling like we are on the precipice of violence. And then Miriam, having just heard the news about Pittsburgh from Evan Tucker, walked onto the bima and told me, and I told you, and whatever oxygen was left in the room seemed to get sucked right out of it in that moment. And I don't know about you, but I am tired, so very tired, of things going from bad to worse. We gather today in this historic sanctuary, in this holy synagogue, almost 60 years exactly after the Hebrew Benevolent Congregation, the temple was bombed in Atlanta, 50 sticks of dynamite planted by white supremacists, ripping through its historic facade. The next day, Ralph McGill, winner of the Pulitzer Prize for editorial journalism, would write these words in the Atlanta Constitution: "It is not possible to preach lawlessness and restrict it. To be sure, none said go bomb a Jewish temple or a school, but let it be understood that when leadership in high places in any degree fails to support constituted authority, it opens the gate to all those who wish to take the law into their own hands." The title of the op-ed: "When the wolves of hate are loosed on one people, no one is safe." We gather today in this historic sanctuary 1 week before the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, the German pogrom during which hundreds of synagogues were burned and vandalized, Jewish books and cemeteries desecrated, and nearly 100 Jews were murdered. It was also the moment my grandfather and his family knew that it was time to get out. And we know that millions did not get out. We gather today in this sanctuary at a time when political sanctuary is under siege, when immigrants feel America's golden door slammed in their faces and the lamp is snuffed out, and we amass troops on our peaceful borders and steal birthrights without even the promise of a bowl of stew. We gather today in this beautiful building after a week of ugliness. On this Baltimore ceasefire weekend, in a town where already more than 50 lives have been snuffed out, rather 50 more lives have been snuffed out by this November 3rd than by the end of the year 4 years ago. And my friend and colleague in the Hudson River Valley saw 3 of his congregants' homes painted with swastikas this week. And we saw a white man committed to white supremacy try to enter a majority black church and, failing that, gun down 2 African Americans in a Kroger in Louisville. And amidst all of this, we saw another white man committed to white supremacy succeed in entering a synagogue in Pittsburgh, in a peaceful urban neighborhood, in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and end 11 innocent Jewish lives with legally purchased weapons of war. It is a tree of life. Its paths are peace. Our holy Torah is, to be sure, a tree of life, but the synagogue, named Tree of Life, was ripped from its path of peace and set on a path of unconscionable violence and unfathomable grief. Last Shabbat morning, we Jews teetered on the precipice of violence. Today, we stand in its aftermath. And so here we are, 1 week later, to show up for Shabbat. And I look around the room and I see so many friends and colleagues. I see allies and neighbors. I'm reminded of a story. In 2015, Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, recognized Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds as one of only 5 Americans to be named righteous among the nation for saving Jews during the Shoah. The following year, President Barack Obama, remember him? Joined the Israeli ambassador at a ceremony in Washington to present the award to the late soldier's son. Who was Roddy Edmonds? Edmonds was captured during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. In late January, as Germany stumbled toward defeat, the prisoner camp commandant ordered Edmonds, the ranking officer, to have only Jewish soldiers present themselves at the next morning's assembly so that they could be separated from the other troops. Instead, Edmonds ordered well over 1,000 POWs, all of the Americans, to assemble outside the barracks. The commandant, infuriated, held his pistol to Edmonds' head and demanded that he turn in the Jews. We are all Jews here. It's what he said. He saved 200 lives that day. Katie used all my Kleenex. Thank you. It's good. I want to thank those of you who showed up in solidarity today, and also a good number who sent their regrets and assurance that they are very much here with us in spirit. And I want to thank you on behalf of the entire congregation for coming into a Jewish house of worship on this day of all days, this first Shabbat, after the bloodiest Shabbat morning any American synagogue has ever seen. You may have felt uncertain about the Hebrew, about the style of worship, even perhaps about your own safety, but you came. And with your presence and by adding your prayers to ours, you said in a manner of speaking, we are all Jews here. And yet the comfort we feel surrounded by your love only dampens the stunning grief our Jewish community is experiencing this week. Judaism is a religion, to be sure, but we Jews have always understood ourselves as a people first and foremost, as mishpacha, a big, messy, extended family. And Pittsburgh is so close geographically to Baltimore. Some of you, as you heard from Katie, have actual family in Pittsburgh or are from Squirrel Hill. One member's mother counted 97-year-old Rose Mallinger among her dear friends, saw her every week. Another Beth Omer knew Rose and also used to lunch with Joyce Feinberg. One of our members was supposed to be last Shabbat morning at one of the congregations that meets in the building and was friends with Jerry Rubinowitz, the doctor who died saving or trying to save the lives of others. Some grew up at or daven now by Beth Shalom, another synagogue just up the street from Tree of Life. And Beth Shalom is where my own chavruta, my study partner, Mike Werbo, was rabbi for several years. Miriam and I remember numerous fond visits to Pittsburgh, staying with them in Squirrel Hill. Mike actually flew back from Sarasota, where he now works, to Pittsburgh for multiple funerals and shivas, but first among them, Cecil Rosenthal's. Cecil was a feature at Beth Shalom's evening minyan, though Tree of Life was their family shul. Mike told me that it's likely he was there at the door, greeting guests, a big smile on his face when the gunman walked in. These 11 beautiful people, they were what we call in Yiddish the balabatim, the older folks who show up early for shul, who organize the books and the prayer shuls, the ones who make the quorum, the glue that hold the fabric of any congregation together. For 4 of the victims, Kristallnacht 80 years ago occurred during their lifetime. All of them. But the brothers Cecil and David were 65 or older and no doubt remember the temple's bombing in Atlanta. They died al Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name in the midst of their prayers. There's a powerful tradition that the broken tablets, the ones that Moses smashed after witnessing the golden calf, were placed next to the whole second set in the ark. And the Talmud, the great 5th century compendium of Jewish law and lore, teaches in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, be sure to respect our elders. As we say, both the whole and broken tablets are placed in the Aron HaBrit, the Ark of the Covenant, in the temple. People in their 80s and 90s, they're not necessarily broken, but their bones can be brittle, their bodies sometimes bent. But the 11 are now truly shvirei haluchot, broken tablets, shattered in hate and rage, and we must now collect them and lovingly place each of them in another aron, because the Hebrew word for ark is also the Hebrew word for casket. At moments like this, it's common to ask, what are we to do? How can we choose a better way forward? Are we even capable of doing so? One of the tropes I'm beginning to hear more and more is that people are losing faith in humanity. More of us are wondering whether the existence of human beings with our capacity to despise and neglect and destroy was such a good idea in the first place. And guess what? If you're asking that question, you are not alone. In fact, our ancient sages asked that very question. Why does the Torah in Genesis, in describing humanity's creation, start with the royal we? Na'aseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu, let us create man in our image. And the Midrash imagines a great heavenly debate between God and the ministering angels on this fundamental question: should man be created at all? The chief concern? Human beings, having been given free will make choices, and they won't always be good choices. The parties in the great debate square off. Chesed, the angel of compassion, says, let him be created, because he will do merciful, compassionate things. Indeed, how many acts of chesed, of loving kindness, have we experienced this week? Raise your hand if you have. I have. Phone calls, notes, social media posts, a few extra hugs. Rebecca's legacy of chesed lives on. But the story continues. Truth, emet, says, let him not be created, for he will be full of falsehood. Tzedek, righteousness, though, argues in favor of creation. He will do justice. The scales are tipping in favor of humanity. But then peace, shalom, pipes up. Let him not be created, for he will be constantly fighting. The sides are deadlocked. A tiebreaker is needed. And yet, The arguments of the four angels are compelling. Humanity will be compassionate and just, but we will also be deceptive and violent. At long last, God steps in and, seeking to move forward with this project of creation, takes truth and flings her to the ground, throws her down to earth. The vote stands 2-1. Humanity is created. Thus it is written in the Psalms, Emet me'eretz titzmach, let truth spring up from the earth. The Kotzker Rebbe, the 18th century Hasidic master, poses an interesting question. What good would it do only to banish truth? Peace, which also argued against the creation of human beings, still remained. And the answer is that in banishing truth, peace is ensured, since the root of most fighting is that people battle each for his own truth. So what is the truth? I mean, the objective truth. What is the emet waiting to be extracted from the ground beneath our feet? It is that our choices have consequences. In another rabbinic text, the sages taught for 2.5 years. The two great academies, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, disagreed. Shammai said better that man was not created. Hillel said better that he was created. Ultimately, a vote was taken. It would have been better that man not have been created. However, teach our sages, now that he has been, he should really examine his actions. Sometimes we too think, perhaps rightly, that the project of humanity may not have been such a good idea in the first place, but our tradition says plainly, too bad. Humanity is here on this planet, destroying it, in this society, demeaning it, and given that we are here, those of us willing to do so must examine our deeds, consider our choices, and then quite simply make better ones. See, I set before you, says Deuteronomy, life and death, blessing and curse. Uvacharta b'chayim, choose life that you and your children may live. Choosing life doesn't mean choosing to be alive. That choice was made for us. We choose what to do with our lives, how to lead our lives, how to walk in the world. To choose life is to make wise choices. I believe making wise, constructive, and compassionate choices is at the heart of any vital and healthy democracy. Each of us stands surrounded by these choices each day: compassion or indifference, truth or lies, justice or injustice, peace or murder, peace or indifference, peace or injustice. No justice, no peace. My friends, this coming week, we have choices. And my job is not to tell you what to choose. That is your American right. That is your God-given right. The Holy One chose to create us with the capacity for free will, but the ability to choose does not mean all choices are equal. Choose life demands our Torah. Choose kindness. Choose honesty. Choose justice. And whenever possible, choose peace. Living in a country where that inalienable right is enshrined in our laws, actually, that's a big deal. It's not a given. My people, if I may talk about my people for a moment here, my people lived most of our existence with little collective power, contrary to the claims of the anti-Semites. We made small choices, tactical choices, choices of survival. But that is not the promise of America. We came here. Yes, we immigrated here, many of us as refugees seeking a better today and a brighter tomorrow. America is supposed to be a different kind of diaspora for Jews, for everyone. Now, I'm not naive. I know that it's an imperfect union. I know that there are people in the room who at one point in our history, according to the Constitution, were worth less than a full human being. And I know that there were people in the room whose grandparents may have been rounded up and put in concentration camps here in America. We are imperfect, to be sure. But I must confess, I believed in America's promise every time I stepped into that voting booth. Here, none of us is supposed to be afraid to just be ourselves. The promise of America is not that we get scraps. We Jews, Muslims, Black folks, Latinos, Native Americans, LGBTQ people, immigrants, women, East Asians, I could go on and on. It is not that we get as much as they give us, but rather as much as we demand of the people that we put in high office. That's what America is supposed to be. But don't take my word for it. Here are the words of a prominent American. In his 1790 letter to the Jews of Newport, Rhode Island, "It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if it were the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens." And then that prominent American continued in his letter, "May the children of the stock of Abraham, who dwell in this land, continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid." Signed, G. Washington. Washington quotes Micah. The word macharid is frequently translated "be afraid," as Washington does, but it really means to tremble in fear, to be, well, terrorized. This week, we are macharid. This week, many of us have been trembling in terror because of terror. What has become, we think to ourselves, of America's promise? But 45 presidents ago, the very first president of these United States recognized that Jews of the world for many centuries have been terrorized and brutalized and murdered, and that this government must give to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance. And 45 presidents ago, the very first president quoted Micah, "V'yashvu ish tachat gafno, tachat te'enato, everyone shall sit under his own vine and fig tree. We will sit in safety under a tree." And that tree will be a tree of sustenance, indeed a tree of life. My friends, this country is supposed to be the modern embodiment of that tree. It is supposed to nourish all of its It is supposed to nourish all of its inhabitants with the sweetness of its yield, to block out the noonday sun with the broadside of its copious leaves. And we are not supposed to be afraid. That was the promise. That is the promise. Peace and truth and compassion and justice, life and liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. but only if enough of us choose a better way forward. Let's stand and maybe put your arm around this person next to you. You're tall. Olam chesed yivaneh, yadadai, dai, yadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai. And you will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, yadadai, then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai. Yadadai, yadadai.